What's good, y'all? Welcome to my review of Wonder Woman 1984. And man, what a movie this was. Now you guys know this movie has kind of been very controversial, for various reasons. After watching the film, I kind of get why. Now me personally, I personally loved the film. I loved Wonder Woman 1984. But I got to admit, this movie definitely has its issues, and I can definitely see this movie definitely does have its fair share of problems. But like I said before, I do just love the movie, but I can definitely see why a lot of people like Angry Joe, Chris Stuckman did not end up enjoying the film. I can see why, and some of it are it's like for some of the same reasons as some of them, but a lot of the times not as much as what they were complaining about in their reviews of the film. But without further ado, man, let's just jump right in. So, of course, the movie is, of course, directed by Patty Jenkins, the same woman that directed the first Wonder Woman film back in when the fuck was that? 2017, I think that was. And of course, stars Gal Gadot, Christine Wiig, Chris Pine, Pedro motherfucking Pascal, uh, co- um, and many more. And so the plot of Wonder Woman 1984 of course takes place in 1984. Wonder Woman is doing her own thing. Of course, she ends up getting the possession of this magical fucking rock, and this magical rock can gain the wishes of whatever you so choose. Which of course she wishes back her boyfriend Steve Trevor. Pedro Pascal gets it, and then we have the film. Now, like I said before, I have my pros to film, but we'll get to those later, and I'll probably end up saving, and I'll probably go more in depth into my overall criticism of the film as the film progresses, or rather, once we get to the spoiler discussion. But let's go on the pauses. First off, I gotta give huge props to Gal Gadot as Wonder Woman. She is fantastic in the film. She really shows her acting in this film, especially around the latter half of it, and she was fantastic. She was great as Wonder Woman in the first film, BVS, Justice League. She's fantastic. She's great, and she showed this is probably her best performance as Wonder Woman, as we've seen so far in the DCEU. Christina Wig, I really enjoyed her as Cheetah, and honestly, I know I'm probably gonna be the minority in this. I actually liked the CGI on her. I dug her design in this film. I know a lot of people have been like kind of hating on it, saying it looks terrible. Me personally, I liked it. I thought it looked cool. I enjoyed the look. I thought it looked pretty interesting, but that's just me. Chris Pine, once again, is great. And Pedro Pascal, man, yo, that man just steals the show. Pedro Pascal as Maxwell Lord, he is just the highlight of the film. This man is just inhaling the scenery around. The man is hamming them, and you can tell Pedro Pascal is having the time of his fucking life in this film. And he was definitely probably one of the best parts of the film, was definitely his performance. He was great, and I really enjoyed his character Maxwell Lord. I thought his character was great. At first, he kind of comes out more of like a stereotypical one-dimensional film, but but as the film progresses, we see some dimensions to him, which will go more in depth in the spoilers. Speaking of spoilers, because I'm curious to see how long this video is going to run. With all this, with everything, I'm going to have to say when we get to spoilers, because I'm curious to see how long this video will be. I'll follow that once I finally get done recording. But anyway. The soundtrack. Yeah. You guys will be hearing the soundtrack in the background of this video. But yeah. Bruh. That soundtrack, fucking fire. Now, I did not know when I finally got the film, I got the Blu-ray in my hand, and I put it into my PlayStation 3 to, of course, sit down and finally watch it. I did not know who was doing the score. So when the opening credits rolled and we saw the opening of the film, you could imagine my pleasant surprise when I saw that Hans Zimmer was the one doing the score, which I was surprised by because I could have swear the man said he was like that he retired from doing superhero movie scores after BVS, but then he came back for Dark Phoenix. Then he's back again with 194. No, I'm not complaining. By any stretch of the I fucking love Hans Zimmer's scores. His scores for the DC movies have been fucking fantastic. Even for Dark Phoenix, that's probably one of the best parts of X-Men Dark Phoenix was definitely his score. So I was pleasantly surprised that he was back doing the score for this film, and man, you could tell this is Hans Zimmer. The score in this film is fucking fantastic. Without a doubt, one of the best scores we have gotten for the DC EU. Great shit, man. You'll be, like I said before, y'all be hearing parts of the script of the score in the background of the video because it is so fire. The opening sequence I fucking love on Themyscira, where we see Wonder Woman as like a child, 7-year-old kid. The kid actors I gotta give huge major praise to. The two child actors we see in the film, both of them give really good performances, which I was kind of surprised how good their performances were. But both of them give great performances. But without a doubt, probably my biggest praise I can give this film is the cinematography. This film is fucking beautiful looking. Like, this is definitely one of the best looking superhero films we have gotten in recent memory, and that is mostly due to the fact that this movie feels and looks like a Silver Age 80s comic. It is bright, it is colorful. Wonder Woman's outfit stands out. You can see it throughout the posters. This movie is very colorful. I can only imagine what this probably looks like with all the HDR shit and all that shit when you watch it in 4K. I don't got no HDR, I don't got no 4K, so I got to stick with the standard Blu-ray, but yo, it looked absolutely amazing, man. Like I said, Wonder Woman's costume overall, both her normal red and blue costume, as well as the gold outfit, which we see at the end of the film, both of them look fucking amazing, man. Especially like her red and blue, because it's been very like subdued. I've noticed throughout the recent DCU films, like even an original film, as well as the two, as well as BVS and Justice League. Regardless of what version you watch of it, her costume has never been as bright and as colorful as probably a lot of people would like it to be. But here in Wonder Woman 1984, it's super bright, super vibrant, and it just pops, man. Like I said before, this movie looks like like a Silver Age 80s comic book brought to life, which makes sense considering the title, Wonder Woman 1984. So that's definitely without it. My biggest praise of the film is definitely that. The cinematography looks fucking fantastic. I'm surprised it wasn't nominated for the Oscars, but whatever. It's a superhero movie, so that's probably why. But regardless of the movie, looked fucking amazing, man. I love the cinematography for the film. The action scenes are all very well done. They all looked great, but without the best action scene in the entire film is the opening on Themyscira. That shit is fucking hype. It was shot beautifully. The song they had playing there was amazing, man, and that shit was just straight fire, man. Like, that was without doubt one of the best parts of the film was the opening. The opening of the film was fucking amazing. I fucking loved it. Christina Wiig, like I said before, was pretty good. The relationship between Steve Trevor and Wonder Woman I thought was really good, but I got my issues with that, which I think that's now a good time for us to go into the negatives, ladies and gentlemen. Now, for me personally, my biggest negatives with the film is just deal with Trevor mostly, and the second act in general. Now, I'm not going to go full into spoiler territory just yet, in case any of you guys who are watching this have not seen the film yet, since it only recently came out on Blu-ray. But I like first off, I wasn't a fan of how they brought Steve Trevor back in the way they did, because the movie has a conflict of its identity, because on the one hand it wants to go full on with the campy hammy shit and make this just a Silver Age comic book brought to the silver screen. But at the same time they're also kind of holding back, not wanting to go all the way with it, which I said will go more into my spoiler discussion. And that goes along with with Steve Trevor and how he's brought back. Now, I know a lot of people have been bringing up how much they hate The Rock. I didn't mind The Rock because this is a comic book movie after all. We've seen dumber shit in these kind of films and as comic books in general. So I could care less about the fucking Rock. But I wasn't a fan of that. I wasn't a fan of how the way it brought back, because the way they did it just didn't feel like it could have been done a lot easier. But my biggest problem was just with Trevor itself, because I feel like Patty. Now, I'm not going to come in here and bash Patty Jenkins. I still think she is a great director. I am still looking forward to watching her do Rogue Squadron when that comes out, and I would still sing this one's praises far more than the two people they had doing Captain Marvel, because at least this one isn't completely butchering her comics. This is still a competently made film, while that one was fucking nothing. Regardless of such, y'all already know my take on the Captain Marvel film and how it butchered Kelly Sue DeConnick's comic run. Regardless of such. But I feel like Steve Trevor and the relationship with Wonder Woman and Steve Trevor, it's almost like her crutch with these films, because now in the first film you have Trevor, he gets introduced, they know each other, fall in love, all that shit for the first Wonder Woman film. It made sense and it was good. But here, I feel like this is just her using Steve as a crutch and just her kind of like returning back to the well one too many times. Because I was like, yeah, but did you really need to bring him back? And my biggest problem with the film goes with Wonder Woman's characterization and the way she's kind of represented with the second half. Now, the second act is without a doubt the weakest part of the film, and my rating honestly was fluctuating so much throughout the entire film thanks to this second act because I was like, there were times where I was like, ooh. There were times where I was like, oh, this movie's fucking amazing. And then there was times I'm like, ooh, like where I'm thinking like, yo, I might low-key have to put this next to, I might have to put this next to Captain Marvel. Might be like, this might be as where I put Captain Marvel if it wasn't for the score and the cinematography at points. And it all came from just Wonder Woman's characterization and how she was represented in the second act. Now I'm not going to go too deep into I'm not going to go too deep into it right now because it does go into spoilers. But I just wasn't a fan of her characterization in the second act. Once we get to the third act, the movie that saves the movie. The third act, without a doubt, saves the movie. I love the fight with Sheet. I thought it looked great. I loved it, and I love I love the ending with Wonder Woman and Wonder Woman and. Maxwell. I thought that was fantastic. Me personally. But yeah, that second act killed them. Almost killed the movie for me. But the third act managed to save it. So wasn't a fan of Steve Trevor, how he was brought in there. I wasn't a fan of just how just the second act in general, and I wasn't a fan of Wonder Woman's characterization. Another thing I didn't really like about the film, and this is about the last thing I'm going to complain about before we jump right into spoilers, was I did not. They do not. The whole thing with Wonder Woman in these films, and the DCU rather, is because after Wonder Woman, the first one, Wonder Woman is so distraught and heartbroken by Steve Trevor, being dead and all that shit, that she locks herself up, disappears from society till BVS, right? Unless I'm missing something, that was what happened. Here, they never really explain why she's back in the open. Why she's kind of chilling at some fucking archaeologist, zoology, whatever the fuck type of job, and being Wonder Woman in broad daylight in front of me. Sure, we see her in the mall section destroying security cameras, but there's still a shit ton of witnesses, and she's like playing up to like this little girl in like the mall scene at the start of the film. So she obviously doesn't really mind being out in the open again. Which, like I said, unless I'm misremembering stuff, in BVS and Justice League, they said that she just disappeared and just isolated herself from society because she was so heartbroken. You know what I mean? And they never once explained why she's back in the open, how, because she is still very distraught about Steve Trevor, but yet here she is out in the open. Like, those are without doubt my only real problems I had with the film, man, and I just wasn't feeling that part. Those are the only things that really kind of irked me. Now, I'm going to give you guys my final verdict, and then we're going to get into spoilers. Now, my final verdict is but like I mentioned before, my rating was fluctuating all the time. It was going down as low as like an 8 at points. Only reason it wasn't even lower was because of how great the cinematography was and Hans Zimmer's score. Like I said, that saved the movie. That kept the movie from probably going down to like a 7 or a 6. Same thing with Captain Marvel. Captain Marvel was saved by Goose, Brie Larson's performance, and Samuel L. Jackson. That saved that film because the screenplay for that was fucking horrendous. This movie, the third act and the music and the cinematography saved this film. But overall, I'm going to give this movie, after many consideration, after kind of bouncing back on it while I was watching the film. But once I finally got to the end of the film and the credits started to roll, by the way, the mid-credits scene was awesome. I really enjoyed that one. I thought that what they did there was cool. But my final verdict for this film was a 10 out of 10. Now, before y'all lynch me, clown on me, whatever you say, I have shit taste or whatever. Like I said, my rating was fluctuating. Now, honestly, if we discount Hans Zimmer's score and the cinematography, I probably would have given this movie probably like a 9, maybe an 8.5. No, I don't think I would go that low because like how good the third act was. I would probably give this movie a 9. maybe an 8.5, depending on how I was feeling. But because of how great the cinematography was, because of how great Hans Zimmer's score was, and the third act and Gal Gadot's performances, and the performances by the rest of the cast in general, that is what kind of kept that movie and kind of put it over the edge and gave it that 10 out of 10. Now, if you ask me, I think the original Wonder Woman movie from 2017 is a lot better. I think it has a better story. I kind of prefer its characters low-key. And even though I would say Wonder Woman 1984 has a better villain, I would still have to say that I would overall thought that Wonder Woman, the original Wonder Woman movie, was a much better film because of the action scenes, the characterization, Gal Gadot's Wonder Woman, and of course No Man's Land. That scene was fucking awesome. We kind of get a scene similar to that in this film, but it did not hit as hard as No Man's Land, if you guys ask me. But, and also, like I said before, how great the opening was, that was another reason how that kind of kept my rating up as high as it was. But overall, it was a fantastic film that I thoroughly enjoyed and loved. But without a doubt, the original Wonder Woman film from 2017 is a lot better. Now, you're going to get into spoilers, man. So, of course, you guys have not seen the film and you guys want to stay spoiler-free, click off the video right now, go watch this film and come back. But for everyone else, let's just jump right in. So, Steve Trevor. We find out that Steve Trevor, this is what I was seeing where the movie kind of wants to be a Silver Age comic, but doesn't want to really completely commit to it, where instead of The Rock, this magical wishing rock thing, just bringing Steve Trevor back from the dead, his body is back and everything, instead they get this random dude. Just this random dude that was kind of just like lives near Wonder Woman, live her apartment or whatever, and Steve Trevor, I guess like his soul, is then transported. Now, I'm not going to complain. Now, yes, this is kind of stupid, but this is kind of where I'm like, now there is a lot of stupid shit in this movie, but I'm like, it's a comic movie. It's trying to be a Silver Age comic book movie, so I'm not going to give it too much shit. But this was kind of stupid because what you could have done said that was a lot easier would have made a lot more sense given this is a comic movie. But then you just get this random dude, and they just pretty much just like put Steve Trevor's soul into him, and now boom, and his memories and everything, and boom, he's Steve Trevor. But the weird thing is that is Steve Trevor's soul basically in another dude's, in his consciousness or whatever you want to call it, in another dude's body. So it's just some random dude that now Steve Trevor is basically hijacked. His life has been hijacked by Steve Trevor. He still looks like a different dude, but Wonder Woman recognizes him, or the film itself just changes its face to Steve Trevor, so for like our convenience or whatever. And at first I was kind of like whatever, but the more I think about it, I'm like, yeah, that was. And after watching Chris Stuckman's review, High Top Films review on the video, as well as Angry Joe's review, yeah, that's kind of stupid. Why didn't they just bring him back from the dead? I feel like that could have been a lot easier rather than this, because now you're like, what about this guy? You just hijacked this man's life. What if this man has a family? Does he have a job? What about the dude you just hijacked? You know what I mean? So that was pretty simple. But my biggest complaint with the film is Wonder Woman's characterization. And that is because in the second half of the film, because she wished for Steve Trevor to be back, how this rock works is that, yes, you wish for something, you get it, but it takes something precious from you away. And for Wonder Woman's case, it's her powers. Throughout the film, throughout the second act, she starts losing more and more of her powers and gets generally weaker. Not to the point of where she like completely loses her powers like in something like Spider-Man 2, but she is severely weakened and probably down to like 50% capacity of her power level or whatever. And the problem with that is that you have it where Wonder Woman as a character. Now, I'm no expert. I'm not going to come out here and act like I'm some hardcore fan of Wonder Woman and I'm some expert on her, because I'm not. I don't read her comics. The only comic I'm going to read for Wonder Woman is going to be that new Black and Gold comic coming in June, only because AJ Lee is writing it, or is writing part of it, and she's my favorite female wrestler, so I'm obviously going to read it. So that, and my only experience for Wonder Woman is, of course, the DCEU films, the DC anime films I've seen, and of course just watching Angel's videos and listening to him talk about Wonder Woman throughout all of his he's done since BVS got announced. So, Wonder Woman's whole thing is very similar to Carol Danvers, is that she doesn't need a man. Not in that condescending, feminazi bullshit, like, oh, men are pigs, fuck men, I don't like, none of that shit, but she's just a strong, independent woman that doesn't need to be saved by a man, you know? Not someone like, I don't know, Lois Lane or someone where Superman has to come and save the day, you know what I mean? But here, Wonder Woman is out here struggling, and Steve Trevor's always going to have to constantly save her. And when I got to that part of the second half, I'm like, yeah, I think I'm starting to see why people don't like this film, and because I was not, I did not like that. I didn't like that Steve Trevor was constantly saving her, because you have this one scene where like where she's like, where they're like in like the Arabian desert or wherever they're like, I think they're somewhere in Africa, and Wonder Woman like completely flips over a truck, completely off the ground. It gets some decent airtime before it finally hits down back to the ground. But then when she starts to get like sandwiched between like two cars, two like military trucks or whatever, she's struggling to keep them apart until Steve Trevor kind of like gets in there and like gets in there to keep them separated, you know what I mean? And there's another scene when we get to the White House, and she's fighting off against her goons, and he comes to save her again. She's like starts missing with like the bullet deflection thing, and she gets hit a couple times. And I was just like, fuck me, man. Like, what? Like, and I know some people are like, oh, Glenn, you're always complaining, talking about, oh, female superheroes need to be, show weakness. They have to have problems, this, that, third. I thought you hated your perfect characters, yet now you're complaining about their being weak. And it's like, there's a difference. There's a difference. I know I might sound like I'm coming off a bit hypocritical, but I'm not. Like, there's a difference between showing a character with flaws and problems and not making them this perfect being. Like Carol in her comics, where Carol isn't this complete like, yes, I am perfect in every sense of the word. You can maybe make the argument now what's going on with the comics now with her trying to learn magic to beat her weakness to it, but that's a different story. But Carol is but like someone like Carol, she has weaknesses, she has problems, and we see that throughout her Kelly Sue comics when she reintroduced her as Captain Marvel and all that shit. And even with Kelly Thompson as well. Very much with her when Star got introduced. But there's a difference between that and just weakening a godlike character just so a man can save her. And I know how that sounds, and I'm not coming out here like some fucking man-hating feminist. It's just like, that just didn't seem right to me, man. And I'm not gonna, and Joe went in off his review that Patty Jenkins doesn't get Wonder Woman because of that, which I'm kind of gonna stay out of this. Like I said, I'm still a fan. I still like the movie. I still think she's a better director than those two did, like with fucking Anna, whatever the fuck the bitches, the duo was that did Captain Marvel just butchered it, and there was just like there was actual character in this film. That movie was lifeless, but anyway, but yeah, like that part, like the Captain Marvel, like this actually had some heart and soul to it. Captain Marvel did that. They obviously did not read Kelly Sue comics. Brie Larson was really the only one that actually gives a shit about Carol. But regardless of such, I still would put her as a director, Patty Jenkins, as a far better director than those two. And like I said, I'm still looking forward to her movie on Rogue Squadron. I'm still looking to her Rogue Squadron movie. But this ain't it, man. I was not a fan of Wonder Woman's characterization that second act, man. It just rubbed me the wrong way. I didn't like how Steve Trevor was always constantly saving. I just don't like how much she relies on Trevor as well. I wasn't a fan of how this is the second time she's kind of where Patty Jenkins has gone back to the well and come back to the Steve Trevor love. So it worked in the first film. I enjoyed it there, but coming back to it a second time, man, it just felt a little unnecessary, And I also didn't like how much Wonder Woman just kind of like relies on Steve, or how much she just kind of or how much the film itself kind of relies on Steve Trevor. I would say wasn't a fan. If they're probably gonna make a third Wonder Woman film, and hopefully with that time when they get to that one, they're not relying on Steve Trevor again, and Wonder Woman's allowed to just be her own, just allowed to own her own movie rather than having to share with Steve Trevor. You know what I mean? But we'll have to wait and see whenever that gets announced or whatever, because I'm sure they're gonna make a third one. So yeah, was not a fan of the characterization of Diana throughout this film. What else? Like I said, the third act, like I said, now let me go with Pedro Pascal's character, Maxwell Lord. Let me talk more about him. Now, I know apparently some people were comparing him to Trump or whatever. I'm not getting into that shit because I frankly do not care. But I love this character, and I love how throughout the film, later on, we find out that there's more to this guy. He's not just some billionaire tycoon douche, where it's just like, oh yeah, man, I'm a billionaire, all that shit. Although I did finally seeing the meme where he says, it's good, but it can be better. That was cool. But I like that that Patty Jenkins and the other writers did give this guy some some nuance. And we find out that he's actually like basically a con man. He's a loser, we're trying to make it out in the oil business because this was the 80s, and apparently that was hot shit. And we see as a son, he's trying to show his son that I'm not a loser. I'm this cool billionaire philanthropist, oil tycoon, when he really isn't. We see and I love how this was shown too, because in the opening floor of of his building, it's all pristine. It looks great. It looks like a proper establishment for a billionaire business type. But then you actually see where his office is, and it's barren, incomplete, and all that shit. Which I really done. And then we see his backstory around the end of the film, where he was kind of like a victim of bullying and all that shit. And I really enjoyed that. I thought that was a nice way to give him some characterization. I liked that. I liked that they gave him some characterization and gave him some nuance. And the third act, I already mentioned how much I loved the film. Loved it. I love the conversation Diana had with Maxwell when he's in the spotlight. He's like, "Why would I give up my wishes?" And she was actually talking to the people. I thought that scene was really, really cool. But without a doubt, probably one of the best parts of the film was when Diane learns how to fly. Hans Zimmer's theme was so good there, man. The sound, whatever song they had playing there. Yes, it was so good. Now, it was nowhere near as good as Superman's First Flight or even No Man's Land, but damn it, that was a damn good scene. That was when I was like, okay, that's when I was like, all right, now we're back to where we should be. And I also did love the scene where Diana finally sacrifices Steve Trevor, and Diana she starts, and Gal Gadot starts crying. Her performance really shined in that moment. And I really enjoyed her performance there, and it really shined there. But as she's running away, you got Hans Zimmer's sword playing, but then you see her wounds starting to heal up, and then she just starts swinging on clouds before she starts to fly. And I thought that whole scene right there, man, that whole segment right there was fucking amazing, man. I love it. This is why my score was fluctuating so much, because the first act was so good. I love the first act with the Themyscira theme, with the Themyscira scene, and the mall scene. I was like, man, this shit's fucking awesome. Why are people complaining? What are people on about? Then I get to the second act, and I'm like, ooh, I can see the issues. Yikes. Then I'm third. I'm like, all right, we're back in business. This is fucking awesome. And it was almost like Wonder Woman was allowed to be Wonder Woman again when Steve Trevor was finally out of the picture. But yeah, man. That's really and also you had what was her name? Linda Carter, I believe it was, the original woman that played Wonder Woman in the '70s cartoon or '70s TV series rather, which I thought that was Linda Carter. Now I don't even watch I never even saw the '70s cartoon. My mom actually grew up with that. And funny story, I asked her after I saw the film and I saw the mid-credits scene. I asked her, "Oh, what do you think of the mid-credits scene?" She was like, "Oh, wait, there's a mid-credits scene." And I don't know if she's gone back and watched it, but I didn't tell her because I know my mom was actually really big on the '70s series. So I'm sure whenever she gets to goes back and watching it, she's probably going to start She's probably going to get a good, probably going to enjoy that one. Because she did grow up watching the '70s series. And I haven't even watched the '70s series, but I just still thought that was kind of cool. Because at first I'm like, who is this Athena character? Who is this chick? And I'm like, oh, it's Linda Carter, the original that played Wonder Woman in the '70s. Okay, that's pretty hype. That's pretty hype. That's cool. That's awesome. Yeah, man. I think that's about all I gotta say about Wonder Woman 1984. Like I said before, I loved it, but it definitely got its issues, man. It got to if you're someone that ended up hating the film, I can see why. But if you're also someone like me who ended up loving the film, I completely understand why. I see both sides of this film. So yeah, guys, tell me down below what y'all thought of Wonder Woman 1984. Did you love the film? Did you despise the film? Tell me and give your reasonings and all that shit down in the comments below, because I'd love to hear people's reasons for this one. Because this isn't like The Last of Us, where I'm like, oh, these idiots are fucking dumbasses. These whatever. Where I'm like, this is my hill to die on. The Last of Us 2 was a fucking masterpiece. Fuck these people that are hating on the game. This time, I'm like, yeah, man, I can understand why people don't like this movie, But me personally, I loved it, man. So yeah, like I said before, guys, tell me down in the comments y'all thought on the film. Leave your reasonings and all that down in the comments. And hope y'all enjoyed the video. If you like, if you did, subscribe if you're new. Follow me on Instagram at TrueFlaggant. Links down in the description box below. And as always, come back for more. See you guys next time.